Welcome, everyone, to the AI Risk Reward Podcast. This is your host, Alec Crawford, and our guest today is Tristan Pelloux, entrepreneur and visiting professor at SRH in Germany. Welcome, Tristan.
Thanks for having me, Alec.
Hey, great to have you here. So, I'd like kicking it off with, early in your career, let's talk a little bit about your career journey and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So after business school, I went to try my luck in London. Initially, I wanted to be an investment banker, so I went to work in M&A, and then realized that it's a bit too far from what I wanted to do, and joined the strategy team of a bank. When over time, I switched from corporate finance matters to more like strategy and innovation stuff, and more specifically looking at how we could leverage new technologies, how could we work with other partners, with like outside partners to build new products and improve our operations. So that was my focus for quite a few years. Then decided that London was too cold for me. Moved to Spain, where I live now, and where I split my time in advising companies on a range of issues, mostly about strategy execution, about transforming the businesses. Academia, where I do PhD research in strategy, and I'm a visiting professor in Germany, as you stated, and then a few random side projects. But these are my core stuff that I do day to day.
Super cool. And you mentioned what is strategy. That was a short piece. I've also read in the Harvard Business Review by Michael Porter. So tell us why that really stuck with you and why you recommend it to our listeners.
Yeah, I think when you're researching strategy, it's very hard to avoid Michael Porter, because when you look at what is strategy, which is very short, and I encourage everybody to read it, goes back to the essence of what is strategy, because sometimes it's a big word, and I would engage leaders, and they would, if they're running maybe a mid-sized business, they feel like it's a big word and they don't understand what it is. But for me, this piece is really simplifying the concept, which is basically, what are you selling? How do you position yourself towards your customers? What makes you so different that they would buy something from you? And I use it a lot to break down, strategy as, okay, at the end of the day, is what are you selling it? What are you selling? Who are you selling it to? Why is it buying from you? It's a bunch of questions, and I think this is a good basis to engage people on that topic, so that they don't feel threatened or afraid by the word, and you can go down to the product and services that they're actually offering.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Look, as you think about learning and career development, strategy is super important, right? And just learning how to think about, learning how to solve problems. So I like that piece. I don't know if you've read Bulletproof Problem Solving is also, a really good piece, more about, obviously solving problems and things that consultants like to think about, but also super interesting. So let's start talking about AI a little bit. So tell me a little bit about what you are seeing in AI, what you're thinking about. Look, every company on the planet is thinking about how to adopt AI, right? But some of them are doing it right and some of them are not. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of noise that we saw 10 years ago with blockchain, where people think about the technology and they don't think too much about the problem that they're trying to solve with the technology. And we see it a lot now, is that there's lots of hype, and every startup is putting, we're AI powered, whatever, and they feel it's increasing their value. And yeah, so what I think beyond the hype is that, of course, there are some potentially strong use cases. There are potentially very good applications, but as usual for any types of technology, I always say the same: is like, let's take a step back, what's the problem? Is AI a solution or is it something else? If it's a solution, okay, what exactly are we gonna do? Uh, are we gonna develop it mostly ourselves? Are we gonna use it someone else's system? How do we scale this? What is the cost? What actually are we saving? So I see lots of people getting too excited and then pouring lots of money into developing something that actually is not saving a lot of money. It's not generating anything. So then, what's the point beyond saying that you're AI? Great, but if it
Yeah.
doesn't improve the bottom line or increase the top line, then there is absolutely no point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we were talking earlier, your advice was start with the business case. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think you would start with, okay, like, what am I trying to solve here? What is a big problem? Well, it can be internal, it can be external. Let's say it's internal and you want to simplify your operations the way you do reporting. And you're like, okay, well, let's try to find a solution to avoid all these Excels flying around and, we'll do something cool. So basically it's building, you know, starting from this, which is, okay, what exactly do I want to do? What is the big problems that I'm trying to solve? And then this is where you get to AI eventually. And this is the same I was advising back a million years ago when blockchain was so hyped, and people were like, "Yeah, let's build something." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's look at the business case. Let's look at how much it's going to cost us. Um, should we partner with someone? Should we develop in house? Actually, no one is developing the models in house now, but okay, we're going to access one model from someone who is best placed, how much it is going to cost us, um, and everybody is throwing it at you right now. Like all your normal software providers tell you, hey, actually, you don't need to go to an AI provider because we are embedding it into our solution. And then someone said, no, but I have a specific solution. And what I see now is like, companies are using 10 different things, which actually are all plugged to OpenAI. So you're like, well, why not? Don't we simplify a bit like the stack here?
Yeah. And look, one of the things that I focus on a lot is, yeah, the use cases are great, but I get concerned that organizations just run too fast and start implementing things without thinking about things like, governance, like what's AI allowed to do, what data does it have access to, what humans have access to that AI in the organization, risk management. There might be data that's not encrypted or consumer data that leaks out in violation of GDPR in Europe and GLBA in the US. And then you've got regulatory compliance, where obviously very strict rules in the US, in Europe, the EU AI Act. In the US, it's more about existing regulations and more voluntary guidelines like the NIST AI risk management framework. And then cybersecurity, right? Where like literally every week we see some kind of breach or cybersecurity problem with AI, with the big one this year being, Echo Leak, where there's a massive security flaw in Microsoft Copilot that exposed hundreds of millions of users with a zero-click exploit where people could send in uh, indirect prompt injections in an email. Copilot would read the email to summarize it and then get trapped with this indirect prompt injection and could be fooled into sending out data or replying to the email or all kinds of, crazy stuff. It's now fixed, but it was out there for a while before people figured it out.
Hmm. Yes, I think it makes sense that companies would at least start, because otherwise you run the risk of you ignore it and then your employees start to use Gen AI in an uncontrolled manner and upload sensitive information just because they want to get an answer. So it does make sense, but as you say, I see some companies are start using it because they see they see it's out there, but without thinking really what are we going to do. Is it really helping us to go faster, go better, and I've seen it recently where everybody is using Gen AI, and you ask a question and this send you stuff that have, obviously been generated by Gen AI, and I'm like, yeah, but this is not what I'm asking you, like, to answer the question about the business, not to give me a general answer, and it's, everybody's getting a bit dumb here, and we're not really, advancing faster. Um, and yeah, on the risks as well, what I've seen with, well, what I've experienced was actually with an organization is that GPT-5 was hallucinating quite a bit. And if you have automations, for instance, replying to clients with a bot and stuff, and it starts to tell them the wrong answers because you have put a lot of faith into the model, then that's a big risk. And it's sometimes an oversight.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Like there's tons and tons of risks of AI. Like let's start with a couple of like interesting use cases you've seen in corporate clients or whatever. And I don't want you to reveal any names or secrets, but just like what's cool out there? What have people been doing that you've seen? They're like, whoa, that's cool. That's cutting edge with AI.
Um, I think that there there are potentially some good use cases. What I've seen, for instance, is on dealing with a lot of information much
Hmm.
faster than anybody else. So, example, you want to analyze companies. You throw in a lot of annual reports, lots of reports about companies to try to detect patterns across an industry. So let's say you're covering banks, you want to know where they're going, where is the industry going. So one good way usually to do this is to look at the annual reports whenever people release. But these things are hundreds of pages. So what you would typically do, you would go through it and like go and try to get the numbers and try to get. So this can be much faster, and you can go straight to the analysis phase. So you save a ton of time. That's a good use case, and this applies to obviously analysis that will feed into your overall strategy to make the right bets and to understand where your competitors are. Also, to detect patterns around disclosures. So about corporate governance, about disclosure. I think there's some, and I know some companies are working specifically on that part around governance and disclosures because it's more subtle. And this is when AI would go faster than even someone very experienced. You would have to go through all this information. It will take time. So that's a good use case that I've seen. I've seen quite that for me could be not absolute game changer, but really a gain of time and a strong use case. Yeah, so I mean, top of my head, these are, and then there are broader stuff that, for instance, using AI to do better credit analysis and lending using different types of data. But this, no one has mastered it yet.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we've been talking to some clients about that are doing subprime lending, and it's very detailed stuff. It's things like, hey, this guy's left his car at a body shop for 30 days. Like he's probably going to stop paying the loan. Like there's really detailed stuff
Mm.
you can do on the consumer side, as well as things you can do, obviously, on the corporate and commercial side, which would take an army of humans to do, or, one AI. So I think that's pretty cool. But speaking of consumers, like that's also like a pretty big risk. Like I don't know if you remember, but Amazon was fined almost €1 billion for GDPR, violations a few years ago. There's a lot of kind of data management and data privacy, risks around AI, and I think those are people, know that there's a lot of that in Europe, but it does exist in the U.S. as well, because what the regulators are saying there is, look, just because it's AI, you still got to follow all the existing rules, right? And the GDPR equivalent in the US is the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, which says, hey, if you release your customer data, even accidentally, you get fined $100,000 per incident by the company and 10,000 for the individual responsible. So there's individual fines as well. And that can be defined, an incident can be defined as each consumer, right? So
Mm,
10 consumers is $1 million for a company and $100,000 for the individual involved, which is sounds pretty crazy, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, as you say, this is where one of the limits of automation that I've seen, even before yeah, all this AI hype, which is it's all good and fun for AI to do automated LinkedIn posts or bots, but AI credit decisioning that decides whether or not you have a loan, the regulator would say, I mean, it's great, but you need to be able to explain how you came up to that with that decision, and also, you know, it can't go wrong, and suddenly you give money that you shouldn't give, or you're not awarding the loans that you should be awarding. So this is one of the limits, is that there, and for good reasons, is that people love this and they love automation and they love cheap stuff, but then especially with money, when things go wrong, everybody will still turn to the government and say, why didn't you protect me for this, for these practices? So this is where there's a bit of this uh, dynamic in finance that is maybe a bit different than other sectors, and where AI would always kind of be limited by regulation for good reasons, I think.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, people are looking for transparency there and accuracy, and it's the whole trust and safety thing. It's just you got to make it work in financial services, or you just can't use AI. And like my observation is, I think some organizations have been kind of running fast on the use case, and then looking back and going, "Oh, we still need to do compliance and risk management and encrypt things and things like that," which is not normal, right? Normally, there's a very defined process for rolling out software, but I think there's so much FOMO or fear of missing out in AI that companies just run ahead without thinking as hard as they normally do or following their normal processes.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not helped by all the gurus that say if you're not the first, then it's gonna be a race when one is taking everything, and I feel everybody is reading this, and then they feel, oh, you need to do it now, or otherwise we're gonna miss, and our competitors are going fast, and actually not knowing exactly what and the competitors do the same, and then everybody's running very fast, and as you say, skipping a bit the normal processes, skipping the ROI phase, skipping all the compliance stuff just to get somewhere. Uh, and then it's a pain if you have to go back to, okay, we spend 5 million, 10 million, but actually this is not the right direction, or we need to redo everything. Uh,
Ooh, yeah, that would be
but
scary.
yeah, it will happen a lot.
Yeah, so look, you know, pivoting to our philosophy of AI section, what most concerns you about AI over the next 5, 10 years? What are you worried about?
Um, so I think I'm generally not worried, because I think for me, my approach to technology, that's what I tell my students as well, that goes in waves, and it changes massively the way we work, the way we interact. And it was the case, with internet, the case with computers, and exactly the same. People were a bit afraid of the impact it might have. I think, I mean, it's obviously known that we always overestimate in the long run, and then underestimate in the short run, like the changes. I think lots of jobs are going to disappear. What I'm concerned is that I see some people not realizing that their jobs is at risk, or not realizing that they need to adapt. But for people that are adapting, then should be fine. For businesses that are also go back to the basics of okay, what I'm really going to try to achieve here, focus really where it's the most impactful for the business, and not spend on a lot of tools and try to go in too many directions, because limited resources and you're going to just burn through your cash flow without any results. So my two concerns, I guess, are personal level, where people not realizing that their jobs is going to change within their companies, within their organizations, and then leadership being too dissipated when it comes to AI.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So look, you have students, you have lots of students. They're studying business and other topics. Like, what's your advice to them around AI and how to work AI into their master plan for their career going forward?
So what I tell them is definitely use it. And for instance, I like earlier this year, I gave them a task which was to build build an MVP basically of a digital business. Like, come up with a digital business, tell me your market, your customers, why you're going to win in that market, and then build something just as a prototype. I told them, look, if you use AI, you'll go faster because you can use websites that are leveraging AI. So you just give a few ideas and you can go much faster. So I tell them to leverage the tools, but one, to remember that it's not always the right answer, so that know what you're asking, and not follow it blindly, because otherwise you're going to go uh, very fast in the wrong direction. And that over time their jobs is going to change, because now it's AI, in 5 years it's something else, or AI will evolve, and basically the jobs that they're going to have when they exit, and then 5 years later and 10 years later will be different, and that they need to keep on learning, which is, I told them this is what I've been doing, and my skills right now are not the skills that I had when I got out of school. And as long as they are curious and they keep on learning, it will be fine. But that they need to live with the realities that AI is going to be part of their jobs, and they need to learn to work with it now, um, because it will be a requisite anyway. So basically, you can't avoid learning a bit about technology right now, and that also one of my advice to them is you can go very fast in learning new skills with AI as well. I've learned a lot how to code using AI, and I told them, well, you need to leverage this kind of things, that you need to build. You can build stuff out of nothing just by leveraging Gen AI, for instance. So this is what I tell them.
Cool. Well, that's great. That's great advice. Look, we're going to shift to our last section, which is a lightning round where I mention things and you tell me if you think that they're underrated or overrated, and maybe a sentence why. So, given where you're living right now, we've got to kick it off with paella from Valencia, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. I think people don't know what a really good paella is.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I love it down there. Um, meditation, underrated or overrated?
Personally, overrated.
Rosé wine from Provence, underrated or overrated?
Underrated.
Yeah,
Like a
good
good
stuff.
rosé with ice in the summer, nothing beats it.
Yeah. Uh, wearable tech, underrated or overrated?
Overrated. I cover this in my course, and there's plenty of stuff. You're like, what's the point? Some
Yeah,
are useful, but most are not useful.
yeah. The future of digital currencies, underrated or overrated?
That's a tough one. I would say depends who you ask. If I talk to people, cryptocurrencies, they think the world is going to change. If I talk to people against, they don't understand it's going to change. So
Yeah,
I'd say it depends on the population, but the
yeah, that's fair.
currencies are changing.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's also differentiated from the blockchain, right? Which can be used for different things like automated contracts and things like that. So,
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Anyway, growing up in the south of France, underrated or overrated?
So I actually didn't grow up so much in I mean, I grew up partly there, partly in Middle East. Now I'm in Spain after UK. South of France is nice in some parts, but I prefer Spain. So I would say overrated.
There you go. Uh, buying new golf clubs to improve your game, underrated or overrated?
Uh, I mean, I bought new clubs recently. Sadly, I mean, it did improve, but I think it's psychological. Improved my game, but I'm not sure it has to do with the clubs. It's more, I have new clubs, so now I'm better.
Yeah,
But no, it's underrated. If you think you need new clubs, just buy new clubs.
yeah. Look, if you got 20-year-old clubs, you definitely need new clubs, right? That's all there is to it. You got 3-year-old clubs, probably not. Um, ultra trails as a hobby, like 50K in the mountains, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. I think if you do one, even if you start, with a 20K or 10K, um, you connect with the nature. You just empty your thoughts, and you really, well, to your point about meditation, this is my meditation, and I think that it's really a great experience. I discovered recently, a few years ago, and I'm quite addict now.
Awesome. Space tourism, underrated or overrated?
Overrated. Like, I don't see the point.
And finally, the movie Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, underrated or overrated?
I think it's underrated. People don't understand like how good this movie is. You can't look at it like it is. You need to go one layer below, which is a comedy movie full of one-liners. And actually, there is a cinema in London. It's called Prince Charles, where they
Mhm.
do quote-along movie sessions, and they would show like all movies. And I went to a quote-along of Commando a few years back, maybe 6, 7 years back. That was awesome because everybody knew all the one-liners, everybody shouting, and really, this movie is really a good one to just to have a bit of fun for an hour and a half.
That's hilarious. Awesome. Well, look, Tristan, thanks for coming on the show. This has been Tristan Pelloux, entrepreneur and visiting professor at SRH in Germany. That was fun. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, it was a good chat. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thanks, Tristan.